Her hand brushed the dying queen's skin by accident, and suddenly the woman gasped back to life. The guards seized her before she could run. What the terrified waitress didn't know, the vampire king watching from the shadows had just found the one person who could save his kingdom. And he wasn't letting her go. The palace smelled like death. Alara Chen pressed herself against the cold stone wall of the servants' corridor, her arms aching from the weight of the food trays. She shouldn't be here. The vampire capital of New Salem wasn't a place for humans after dark, especially not in the palace itself. But Mrs. Kowalski from the kitchen had called in sick, and Alara needed the extra $60. $60 meant Liam's school supplies. $60 meant keeping the lights on another week. Move faster. A vampire guard rushed past her, his boots echoing on marble. The queen. She's dying. Alara's heart jumped. She'd heard the rumors at the diner where she worked the morning shift. Queen Lysandra, the only thing standing between the vampire lords and total chaos, was fading. Some said it was a curse. Others whispered poison. Nobody knew for sure. Thunder cracked outside, shaking the ancient windows. The storm had rolled in an hour ago, and it felt like the sky itself was mourning. You, human. Another guard spotted her. His eyes were wild, desperate. Where's the night staff? We need food in the royal wing now. I'm just delivering to the lower kitchens, Alara stammered. She'd never been past the servants' quarters. Humans didn't go to the royal wing. Ever. Forget protocol. Half the staff fled when the queen collapsed. Come on. Before she could protest, he grabbed her elbow and pulled her down a hallway lined with portraits of stern vampire ancestors. Their painted eyes seemed to follow her. Alara's pulse hammered in her throat as they climbed a spiral staircase, higher and higher into the palace's heart. The guard shoved open massive oak doors, and Alara stumbled into chaos. The queen's chamber was enormous, all dark velvet and silver candelabras, but right now it looked like a battlefield. At least 10 vampires in elaborate robes crowded around a canopy bed, shouting over each other. Medical equipment Alara didn't recognize covered every surface. The air reeked of herbs and something metallic. Blood. The regeneration serum isn't working. Try the moonstone infusion again. We already did. 3 times. Her body's rejecting everything. Alara set the trays on a side table with shaking hands, desperate to leave. This wasn't her world. These weren't her problems. She was just a 28-year-old waitress trying to raise her son alone after her ex disappeared 2 years ago. She served coffee and smiled for tips, and went home to a cramped apartment that always smelled like the Chinese restaurant downstairs. She didn't belong in a vampire palace watching a queen die. Enough. The single word cut through the noise like a blade. Everyone fell silent. A young man stepped out of the shadows near the window, and Alara's breath caught. She'd seen pictures of King Cale Varen in the newspapers, usually scowling at press conferences about vampire-human relations, but none of them captured the raw presence of him. He couldn't be older than 30, with sharp cheekbones and black hair that fell across his forehead. His eyes were the color of steel, and right now they held nothing but cold fury. You're arguing while she dies, Cale said quietly. His voice was steady, but Alara heard the tremor beneath it. The fear. Someone tell me something useful, or get out. The oldest vampire, a man with silver streaks in his hair, stepped forward. Your Majesty, we've exhausted every treatment. The poison, if that's what it is unlike anything in our records. It's draining her life force faster than we can replenish it. I'm sorry, but you should prepare yourself. No, Cale moved to the bedside. No, I won't. He stopped. His mother lay motionless on white sheets, her skin almost translucent. Her chest barely moved. Queen Lysandra had always been described as formidable, powerful. Now she looked impossibly fragile. Cale's hand trembled as he touched her forehead. There has to be something. Someone. Anyone who can help. We've consulted every healer in the territory. Then look outside the territory. Kale's composure finally cracked. Send word to the European covens, the Asian courts. I don't care if we have to wake the ancient ones. Find me someone who knows what this is. A crash made everyone spin around. Alara had knocked over a metal tray. The sound echoed like a gunshot in the sudden silence. Every vampire in the room turned to stare at her, and she realized with horror that she'd forgotten the cardinal rule. Humans in vampire spaces should be invisible. I'm sorry, she whispered. I'll go. She bent to pick up the fallen silverware, her hands clumsy with nerves. A fork skittered across the floor, rolling under the queen's bed. Without thinking, Alara crawled after it, desperate to clean up her mess and disappear. Her fingers closed around the fork, but as she backed out from under the bed frame, her bare hand brushed against something warm. The queen's hand, hanging limply over the edge of the mattress. Light exploded behind Alara's eyes. It felt like touching a live wire, but instead of pain, there was warmth, a golden, rushing warmth that surged up her arm and into her chest. For half a second, she saw something impossible. Threads of light connecting her to the queen, pulsing and alive, weaving through the darkness in the dying woman's veins like rivers finding the sea. Then the connection snapped. Alara gasped and fell backward, landing hard on the marble floor. The room spun. Her hand tingled where she'd touched the queen's skin. What? Someone started to say. The queen sucked in a sharp, rattling breath. Then another. Color bloomed in her cheeks like roses opening at dawn. Her eyes fluttered. The deathly stillness that had hung over her lifted, replaced by the subtle movements of life returning, a finger twitching, chest rising and falling with new strength. Impossible, the silver-haired vampire breathed. Queen Lysandra's eyes opened. They were the same steel gray as her son's, but warmer, confused. Kale. Her voice was hoarse but clear.
What?
What happened? The room erupted. Vampires rushed forward, checking vitals, shouting in disbelief. Someone was crying. Kale stood frozen at his mother's bedside, staring at her like he'd seen a ghost. Then his gaze snapped to Alara, still sprawled on the floor, and his expression shifted from shock to something harder. Dangerous. Seize her, he commanded. Two guards grabbed Alara's arms, hauling her to her feet. Her mind couldn't process what was happening. One moment she was picking up a fork, the next the queen was alive, and she was being arrested. Wait, I didn't do anything. Alara's voice came out high with panic. I swear, I touched her hand and… What did you do? Kale strode toward her, his face a mask of controlled fury. What spell? What poison? Nothing. I don't know magic. I'm just a waitress. The queen's weak voice cut through the chaos.
Kale.
Stop. He turned to his mother, his jaw tight. She didn't hurt me, the queen's hand reached out, trembling slightly. I felt it.
Light.
Pure light, after so much darkness. She saved me. Kale looked between his mother and Alara, and for the first time, uncertainty flickered across his face. Your Majesty, the silver-haired vampire said carefully. With respect, we need to understand what happened. This human shouldn't have been able to. Lock down the palace, Kale interrupted. His eyes never left Alara. No one in or out until I have answers. Take her to the East Tower. Post guards. But his voice dropped. No one touches her. Is that clear? The guards nodded and started pulling Alara toward the door. She twisted in their grip, her mind screaming. Please. I have a son. He's with my neighbor. He's only 10. He'll be scared. Your son will be brought here, Kale said flatly. Until I know what you are, you're not leaving. As the guards dragged her into the hallway, Alara caught one last glimpse of the queen, sitting up now, fully alive. Their eyes met across the crowded room. The queen smiled, sad and knowing, and mouthed 2 words. Thank you. Then the doors slammed shut, and Alara was alone with her terror and the impossible truth burning in her veins. Something had just changed.
She didn't know what. She didn't know how.
But her ordinary life had just ended. The East Tower room wasn't a cell, but it wasn't freedom either. Alara paced the length of the ornate chamber for the 100th time, her sneakers silent on thick Persian rugs, velvet curtains, a 4-poster bed that could fit her entire apartment, a bathroom with marble everything. It was the nicest prison she'd ever seen. Through the tall windows, she watched the storm finally break. Dawn was still hours away, but the rain had stopped, leaving the vampire capital glistening under lamplight. Somewhere out there, past the palace walls and the wealthy districts, was her neighborhood. Her apartment. Liam. God, Liam. Her stomach twisted with guilt. Mrs. Chen from 3B was watching him, but she'd think Alara just got held up at work. She wouldn't know to be worried. Not yet. The lock clicked. Alara spun around as the door opened. A female vampire in a white coat entered, followed by 2 guards, and her heart leaped. Liam. Mom. Her son broke free and ran to her. Alara dropped to her knees and pulled him into her arms, breathing in his familiar scent of grape shampoo and playground dirt. He was still in his Iron Man pajamas, his dark hair sticking up in every direction. It's okay, baby. I'm okay, she held him tight, checking him over.
No bruises.
No fear in his eyes, just confusion. The guard said you had to work late at the palace, Liam said, pulling back to look at her face. They were really nice. One of them let me sit in the front seat. Are we in trouble?
No, sweetheart.
There was just a misunderstanding. Alara glanced at the vampire in the white coat, who was watching them with clinical interest. We'll be home soon. Actually, the woman said, her tone professionally neutral. That depends on the king's assessment.
I'm Dr. Mara Reeves.
I need to run some tests.
Tests.
Alara stood, keeping Liam close. I told you people, I don't know what happened. I don't have magic. Nevertheless, Dr. Reeves set a black medical bag on the table. The Queen made a complete recovery within minutes of your contact. Her vitals are stronger than they've been in weeks. Whatever you did, we need to understand it. I didn't do anything. Mom. Liam tugged her hand. What's she talking about? What happened? Alara opened her mouth, but what could she say? I accidentally healed a dying vampire queen, and now they think I'm dangerous. Your mom helped someone, Dr. Reeves said before Alara could answer. Her voice softened slightly. She might have a very special ability. We're just trying to figure out how it works. Like a superpower? Liam's eyes went wide. That's so cool. It's not, Alara sighed. Can we just do this quickly? I need to get him back to bed. The tests were strange and invasive. Dr. Reeves drew blood 3 vials and took skin samples. She pressed cold instruments against Alara's temples and wrists, murmuring notes into a small recorder. Liam sat on the bed, swinging his legs and asking 1,000 questions that no one answered. Fascinating, Dr. Reeves finally said, staring at a handheld device that showed Alara's blood sample glowing faintly gold under some kind of special light. There are traces of an element I've never seen before. It's bonded to your red blood cells, dormant until she looked up sharply. Have you ever healed anyone before?
No.
I mean, I'm good at first aid. I bandage Liam's knees all the time. But nothing unexplained?
No rapid healing?
Miraculous recoveries? Alara shook her head.
I'm nobody.
I serve pancakes and clear tables and try to make rent. That's it. Dr. Reeves studied her for a long moment, then closed her bag. I need to consult the archives. There's something in the old records about light-born humans, but I thought it was mythology. She moved toward the door, then paused. For what it's worth, Miss Chun, I don't think you're dangerous. But the council does. Be careful. After she left, Alara finally let herself sink onto the bed next to Liam. He immediately curled against her side. Are we really okay, Mom? Yeah, baby. We will be. She hoped she wasn't lying. Cale stood outside the East Tower, his hand raised to knock, frozen. On the other side of the door, he could hear the human woman singing. Something soft and melodic, a lullaby, he realized. Her son must have fallen asleep. He should barge in, demand answers. He was the king. He didn't ask permission. But something held him back. In the Queen's chamber, after the chaos had settled and the doctors confirmed the impossible recovery, his mother had gripped his hand with surprising strength. "Don't hurt her, Kale." "I won't. But I need to know." I saw her eyes. His mother's voice was firm despite her exhaustion. When our hands touched, I saw into her soul. There was no malice.
No calculation. Just light.
Pure, terrified light. She'd squeezed his fingers. "She's as confused as we are. And she has a child. Promise me you'll remember that." He'd promised. But now, standing in the hallway with his counsel demanding the woman be handed over for study, their polite word for experimentation, that promise felt dangerously naive. The singing stopped. Kale knocked. "Come in," came the quiet response. He entered to find Alara Chin standing by the window, her arms wrapped around herself. The boy was asleep on the bed, his small body barely making a dent in the massive mattress. She'd covered him with a blanket that probably cost more than her monthly rent. "Your Majesty," she didn't bow, didn't look away, just met his eyes with exhausted defiance. "Are you here to tell me what happens next?" "That depends." Kale closed the door behind him. "Tell me the truth. How did you heal my mother?" "I don't know. That's not good enough. It's all I have." Frustration cracked through her composure. I touched her hand. There was this warmth and light, and then she woke up. "I don't understand it any more than you do." Kale studied her. She looked nothing like what he'd expected a light-born human to look like, if the legends were even real. She was small, barely reaching his shoulder, with dark circles under her eyes and calluses on her hands from years of hard work. Her hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail. She wore a stained diner uniform under a threadbare jacket. She looked like every struggling human in the outer districts. Tired, afraid, trying so hard to survive. "My council wants you detained," he said finally. "They believe your blood could hold the key to making vampires immune to sunlight. To making us more powerful." Her face went pale. "They want to bleed you dry, most likely. Study your son, too, since Dr. Reeves detected similar markers in his samples." Alara moved instinctively toward the bed, positioning herself between Kale and Liam.
No.
"You can't. He's just a kid." "I know." Kale held up a hand. "Which is why I'm not giving you to them." She blinked. "What?" "Until I understand what you are and what happened, you're under my protection. Both of you." He moved to the window, looking out at his city. "But that protection has conditions. You stay in the palace. You don't speak to anyone without my permission. And if we discover you're a threat, we're not. Then you have nothing to worry about." He turned back to face her. "My mother wants to meet your son tomorrow. She says his presence makes her feel stronger. I'm curious to see if that's true." Alara's expression shifted from fear to confusion. "Why would?" "I don't know. But I'm going to find out." Kale walked to the door, then paused. "One more thing. The poison that nearly killed my mother? It was deliberate. Someone in this palace wanted her dead. So if you did somehow save her life, you've made an enemy. A powerful 1-inch." He left before she could respond, but he heard her sharp intake of breath. "Good. Let her understand the danger. Let her be careful." Because despite his mother's faith and his own strange instinct to trust this woman, Kale knew one thing for certain. Miracles didn't exist in his world without a price. And he had a feeling they were all about to pay it. Morning came cold and gray to the vampire capital. Alara woke to find Liam already up, his face pressed against the window, watching the palace grounds come alive below. Guards changed shifts. Servants hurried between buildings. Everything moved with military precision. "Mom, there's a garden down there with a real maze," Liam said without turning around. "Can we explore?" "I don't think we're allowed to leave this room, baby." A knock interrupted them. A young vampire woman entered carrying a tray of food, real human food, Elara noted with relief. Eggs, toast, fresh fruit. Even a glass of orange juice for Liam. Compliments of the Queen, the servant said softly. She requests your presence in the solar room at noon. Both of you. After she left, Elara picked at her breakfast while Liam devoured his. Her mind kept circling back to Kale's warning. Someone poisoned the Queen. Someone wanted her dead. And now Elara was stuck in the middle of vampire politics she didn't understand. Mom, you're doing the worry face again, Liam observed through a mouthful of toast. I'm always worried. That's my job. Is it about the king? He seems scary, but I heard one of the guards say he's actually really fair. He changed some laws so humans don't have to pay the extra blood tax anymore. Elara looked at her son, surprised. Where did you hear that? The guards last night. They talked about him a lot. They said he's the best king they've had in like 100 years, but the old vampire lords hate him because he's too nice to humans, Liam shrugged. I don't think he wants to hurt us, Mom. Out of the mouths of babes, Elara thought. Still, she wasn't ready to trust anyone here. The solar room was aptly named. Floor-to-ceiling windows faced east, and despite the overcast sky, the space glowed with natural light. Elara understood immediately why the Queen had chosen it. Most vampires avoided this much daylight exposure. It was a statement of strength. Queen Lysandra sat in a high-backed chair near the windows, wearing a deep blue dress that made her look regal despite yesterday's brush with death. Dr. Reeves stood nearby with her ever-present medical equipment, and King Kale leaned against the far wall, his arms crossed, watching everything with those unsettling gray eyes. Miss Chun, the Queen's voice was warm, genuine. Thank you for coming. And you must be Liam. Liam, usually shy around strangers, stepped forward without hesitation. Are you feeling better, Your Majesty? The Queen's smile lit up her whole face. I am, dear boy. Thanks to your mother. She's pretty great, Liam agreed, making Elara's heart squeeze. Come here, child. Let me see you properly. Liam glanced back at Elara, who nodded reluctantly. He approached the Queen, and she took his hands in hers, gently, carefully, the way you'd handle something precious. The moment their skin touched, Dr. Reeves's equipment beeped. Remarkable, the doctor breathed, staring at her readings. Your Majesty, your cellular regeneration just spiked by 30%. Your blood oxygen levels are rising. It's like his presence is amplifying the healing effect. The Queen closed her eyes briefly, and when she opened them, they were brighter, clearer. I feel it. Like sunlight in my veins, she looked at Elara with wonder.
What are you?
Both of you? I don't know, Elara said honestly. I've never been anything special. My parents were immigrants. My dad worked construction. My mom cleaned houses. They died in a car accident when I was 19. There was nothing magical about them. Nothing magical about me. And your son's father? Elara's jaw tightened. He left when Liam was 7. I haven't heard from him since. He was human. Completely ordinary. Dr. Reeves looked up from her tablet. Your Majesty, I found something in the archives last night. References to a bloodline called the Dawn Line, humans born with light element essence in their cells. They were healers, protectors. The records say they disappeared over a century ago, hunted to extinction by vampires who fear their power. The room went cold. Hunted. Elara pulled Liam back to her side. You mean murdered? By vampires who are long dead, Kale said sharply, speaking for the first time. We're not them. But your council wants to study us like lab rats. That's not exactly reassuring. My council wants a lot of things they won't get. He pushed off the wall and approached them. Dr. Reeves, show them. The doctor pulled up an image on her tablet, an old portrait, the paint cracked with age. It showed a young woman with kind eyes and dark hair, wearing simple clothes. She stood in a garden, her hands glowing with soft golden light. This is Ariane of Light, Dr. Reeves explained. Painted in 1924. She was the last confirmed Dawn Line healer. According to the records, She saved the previous king from blood fever, then vanished. No one knows what happened to her. Alara stared at the portrait, her skin prickling. The woman's face was hauntingly familiar. Not identical to her own, but similar enough to be unsettling. The same bone structure. The same slight build. "That's not possible," she whispered. "Actually, it makes perfect sense," Dr. Reeve said. "If Ariane survived and had children, her bloodline could have gone dormant for generations. The light element trait might only activate under specific circumstances: extreme stress, life-threatening situations, direct contact with someone dying. So I'm what? Her great-great-granddaughter?" "Most likely, yes." Liam tugged Alara's hand. "Does this mean we're like superheroes?" "It means you're in danger," Kale said bluntly. "The Dawn line was hunted for a reason. Vampire lords feared that humans with the power to heal could also have the power to harm, to purify vampire blood until it burns from the inside out." Alara's eyes widened. "I would never." "I know that. My mother knows that. But the council doesn't." He glanced at his mother, some unspoken communication passing between them. "Lord Varek, my uncle and the head of the treasury, is already spreading rumors. He's convinced half the nobles that you're a threat. They're calling for an emergency session tomorrow to vote on your containment." Containment. The word tasted like ash in Alara's mouth. "You mean imprisonment?" Or worse, the queen rose from her chair, steadier than she'd been in weeks. "Which is why Kale has a proposal." Kale's expression was unreadable. "I'm declaring you and your son under royal protection. You'll stay in the palace as my mother's personal guests. No one can touch you without committing treason against the crown. And in exchange?" Alara wasn't naive. There was always an exchange. "You help us find who poisoned my mother. Someone in this palace is a traitor, and I need to know who before they strike again." His eyes were hard as steel. "You saved her life once. Help me keep her alive." Alara looked at Liam, then at the queen, who watched her with a mixture of hope and exhaustion. Then at Kale, this young king carrying the weight of a kingdom on his shoulders. She thought about their cramped apartment, the bills piling up, the constant struggle to keep Liam fed and clothed. She thought about the danger they were in whether she agreed or not. And she thought about that moment in the queen's chamber, the golden light, the life flowing back, the rightness of it all. "I can't promise I'll be any help," she said finally. "But I'll try." Kale nodded once, sharp and decisive. "Then welcome to the palace, Miss Chen. Try not to get killed." "That's the plan," Alara muttered. But as she watched the king stride from the room, his shoulders tense with the burden of secrets and lies, she had a sinking feeling that surviving the vampire court would be harder than anything she'd ever faced. Even harder than raising a 10-year-old alone while working double shifts. At least with pancakes and demanding customers, she knew the rules. Here she was learning the rules could get you killed. 3 days passed in a blur of routine and strangeness. Alara and Liam were moved to a suite in the residential wing, still under guard, but with more freedom to move around designated areas. Liam adapted with the resilience of childhood, turning the palace into his personal adventure. Alara remained tense, waiting for the other shoe to drop. It dropped on the 4th morning. She woke to find Liam's bed empty. Panic seized her throat. She ran into the hallway in her sleep clothes, ready to scream for the guards, when she heard it. Liam's laughter, bright and carefree, echoing from somewhere below. Following the sound, Alara found herself in a part of the palace she hadn't seen before. The corridors here were older, the stone worn smooth by centuries of footsteps. Tapestries depicting ancient battles lined the walls. She turned a corner and stopped short. A set of double doors stood open, revealing a private garden courtyard. Morning sun streamed through the glass ceiling panels, retractable, Alara realized, so vampires could close them at will. Right now they were open, flooding the space with light. In the center of the garden, Liam sat cross-legged on the grass next to Queen Lysandra. They were playing chess. "No, see," the The knight moves in an L shape, Liam was explaining patiently. Like this. You can jump over other pieces. The queen studied the board with intense concentration.
Ah, I see.
That's rather clever, she moved her knight, capturing one of Liam's pawns. Like this.
Perfect.
You're getting good at this. Alara stood frozen in the doorway, uncertain whether to interrupt. The scene was so normal. A grandmother teaching her grandson chess. Except the grandmother was a vampire queen who'd nearly died less than a week ago, and the grandson was apparently part of an extinct bloodline of magical healers. Miss Chun, Dr. Reeves appeared beside her, tablet in hand as always. Don't worry. The queen requested his company this morning. I've been monitoring both of them. You could have asked me first, Alara said tightly. The queen doesn't ask permission, but Dr. Reeves's tone wasn't unkind. Look at the readings. She held out the tablet. Multiple graphs showed data Alara didn't fully understand, but one thing was clear. Every metric related to the queen's health had improved dramatically over the past hour. His presence accelerates her recovery, Dr. Reeves explained. Not just maintains it, actively improves it. When he's near her, her cellular regeneration increases by 40%. Her blood pressure normalizes. Even old injuries seem to heal faster. It's extraordinary. In the garden, the queen laughed at something Liam said. The sound was pure and joyful, and Alara realized she'd never heard the queen laugh before. All the portraits showed her stern and regal. But right now, in the morning light with a child beside her, she looked almost
happy.
Your Majesty, a sharp voice cut through the peace. Lord Varrock strode into the garden, his elaborate robes sweeping behind him. He was tall and lean, with silver threaded through his dark hair and eyes like chips of ice. 3 other council members followed in his wake. Kale's uncle, the man who wanted them imprisoned. This is highly inappropriate, Varrock announced. That child should not be alone with Her Majesty. We don't know what he is or what dangers he poses. The Queen's expression cooled instantly. Lord Varrock, I don't recall inviting you to my private garden. Forgive me, Your Majesty, but the Council has concerns. This human child has shown me more kindness in one morning than you've shown in the past decade. The Queen stood, placing herself between Varrock and Liam.
He is my guest.
You will treat him with respect. Varrock's jaw tightened. His gaze shifted to Alara in the doorway. And his mother? The one with dangerous, uncontrolled power? You trust her around you, without supervision. I trust her more than I trust certain members of my own court. The Queen's voice turned to steel. Now leave, before I forget that you're my late husband's brother and have you removed. For a moment, Varrock's mask slipped, and Alara saw something ugly beneath. Cold rage, and something else. Fear? But he recovered quickly, bowing with exaggerated courtesy. Of course, Your Majesty. I merely worry for your safety. His eyes found Liam. Such precious, mysterious things often come with hidden prices. He swept out, his entourage trailing behind. The garden felt colder in his wake. Liam looked up at the Queen with worried eyes. Did I get you in trouble?
No, sweet boy.
You did nothing wrong. She sat back down, but Alara noticed her hands were trembling slightly. Some people fear what they don't understand. That's their weakness, not yours. Alara entered the garden, unable to stay silent any longer. Your Majesty, maybe this isn't a good idea. If the council will do as I command, but the Queen's voice lacked conviction. She suddenly looked tired again, the brief surge of strength fading. Though I'll admit, Lord Varrock's opposition is concerning. He hates us, Liam said matter-of-factly. I could tell. His eyes went all mean when he looked at us. Liam. Alara gasped. But the Queen smiled sadly. Children see clearly what adults try to hide. Yes, dear boy, I'm afraid Lord Varrock does not wish you well. He believes humans have no place in vampire affairs. She paused, choosing her words carefully. He also stands to inherit the throne if something happens to Kale and me. The implication hung heavy in the air. You think he poisoned you, Alara breathed. I think someone did. And Varric has the most to gain from my death. The queen reached out and took Alara's hand. Which is why I need you both close. Your son makes me stronger. Strong enough to fight back. Strong enough to help Kale root out the traitor before they strike again. Her hand was cool and dry, but as Alara held it, she felt that familiar warmth building, the golden light just beneath her skin, responding to the queen's need. Without thinking, she let it flow. The queen gasped softly. Color returned to her cheeks. Her trembling stopped. Like sunlight, Lysandra whispered. After so long in the dark. Dr. Reeves's equipment started beeping frantically. Incredible. Ms. Chun, you're doing it consciously now. You're controlling the healing. Alara looked down at their joined hands, seeing the faint shimmer of light between them. I don't know how I'm doing it. Then learn, the queen squeezed her fingers. Because I suspect we'll need your light before this is over. A shadow fell across the garden. Kale stood in the doorway, his expression unreadable. The council has called an emergency session. Tonight. They're demanding answers about the Dawnline heir. His eyes met Alara's. They want proof that you're not a threat. And if I can't prove it, then my uncle gets what he wants. Kale's voice was flat. And I won't be able to protect you anymore. Alara looked at Liam, still sitting on the grass with chess pieces scattered around him. Her son. Her whole world. She'd spent 10 years keeping him safe, working herself to exhaustion to give him a chance at a decent life. Now that life had been ripped away, replaced by danger and palace intrigue and ancient bloodlines she didn't understand. But as the queen's hand warmed in hers, as the light pulsed between them steady and sure, Alara felt something she hadn't felt in years. Purpose. Then I guess, she said slowly, we'd better figure out how to prove it. Kale nodded once. We have until sunset. Make it count. As he left, Alara caught the briefest glimpse of worry in his eyes. Worry for his mother, for his kingdom. Maybe, she thought, even for them. But worry wouldn't save them. Only the truth would. And Alara was starting to suspect the truth was far more dangerous than any of them realized. Kale's private study was lined with books that smelled of leather and time. Alara sat on an uncomfortable antique chair while Liam napped on a sofa nearby, exhausted from his morning with the queen. Dr. Reeves had insisted the boy needed rest. Channeling healing energy, even unconsciously, took a physical toll. Kale paced behind his massive desk, papers scattered across its surface. Maps of the palace. Medical reports. Something that looked like financial ledgers. Tell me everything you remember about the night my mother collapsed, he said without preamble. Alara had gone over it a dozen times already, but she did it again. The storm. The panicked guard. Stumbling into the queen's chamber. The dropped fork. The accidental touch. And before that, earlier in the evening, I was at the diner until 7. Then I went home, helped Liam with homework, put him to bed at 8:30. Mrs. Kowalski called at 9 asking if I could do the palace delivery because she was sick. I said yes because she hesitated. Because you needed the money. Yes, no point in being ashamed of the truth. $60 means a lot when you're one bad week away from eviction. Something flickered in Kale's eyes. Understanding, maybe even respect, but it was gone before she could be sure. He pulled out a thick folder and dropped it on the desk between them. My mother's medical records. 3 months ago, she started experiencing fatigue. Small things at first, sleeping longer, reduced appetite. The doctors thought it was age. Vampires age. Slowly. Very slowly. But yes, he opened the folder, revealing charts and test results. 6 weeks ago, the symptoms worsened. Weakness, occasional confusion, muscle tremors. Still, the physicians found nothing wrong. No disease, no curse, no obvious cause. But you suspected poison. I suspected something. Kale's jaw tightened. My mother is the heart of this kingdom. Without her, the old lords would tear apart everything we've built. Civil war would be inevitable. Someone benefits from that chaos. He pulled out another document, a palace floor plan with marks and notes scrawled across it. After you healed her, I started investigating. I checked her chambers personally. Found this. He set a small crystal vial on the desk. It was empty, but Alara could see dark residue coating the inside. Her water pitcher, she guessed. Her blood supplement. Vampires of her age take them nightly, refined blood essence mixed with medicinal herbs. This was taken from her private cabinet 2 nights ago. After I, quietly, had everything in her room replaced, Kale's expression was granite hard. I had it tested. It contains shadow nightshade, a rare poison that mimics natural aging. Slow-acting. Nearly impossible to detect. And in high enough doses, completely fatal. Alara felt sick. Someone was poisoning her slowly, making it look natural. For months. Small amounts, carefully measured. Whoever did this had access to her private chambers, knew her routines, and had the patience to kill her inch by inch. He paused. And they almost succeeded. Until I accidentally cured her. Until you saved her life, Kale met her eyes. Which means whoever poisoned her now sees you as a threat. You're the only thing standing between them and another attempt. The weight of that settled over Alara, like a shroud. She glanced at Liam, sleeping peacefully, unaware that his mother had just become the target of a murderer. You said your uncle has the most to gain, she said quietly. Lord Varric stands to inherit if both my mother and I die. He's always resented that my father chose my mother as his queen instead of marrying Varric's sister. He believes vampires should rule alone. Without consideration for humans, Kale moved to the window, staring out at the palace grounds. But suspicion isn't proof. Varric is cunning. He'll have covered his tracks. Then how do we prove it? We don't. Not yet. Kale turned back to her. But I can stall the council, buy us time. Tonight's session will be about you, proving you're not a threat. If we can convince them that the Dawn Line is a gift, not a weapon, it weakens Varric's position. He's been spreading fear, claiming your power is unpredictable and dangerous. It is unpredictable. I barely understand it myself. Then learn faster. His tone was harsh, but Alara heard the desperation beneath it. Dr. Reeves thinks you can control the healing consciously now. That you can direct it, focus it. If you can demonstrate that control to the council. They'll what? Welcome us with open arms? Your uncle made it pretty clear this morning that he wants us gone. My uncle wants many things. I decide what he gets. Kale's voice dropped to something almost dangerous. But I need your cooperation. I need you to show the council that you're an asset, not a threat. That you choose to help us. Do I have a choice? The question hung between them, heavy with implication. They both knew the answer. No, Kale said finally. But I can promise you this. If you help me protect my mother and find the traitor, I'll make sure you and your son are safe. Not just for now. Permanently. New identities if you want them. Money. Protection. Whatever you need to build a life free from this. Alara studied him. He looked exhausted, she realized. Dark circles under his eyes. Tension in every line of his body. He was barely 30 years old and carrying a kingdom that wanted to tear itself apart. Why do you care? She asked. About humans, I mean. Most vampires don't. My mother taught me that power without compassion is just tyranny. He returned to his desk, shuffling papers absently. She spent decades trying to bridge the gap between our species. Better housing for humans in vampire territories. Fair wages. Protection laws. And for that, the old guard has always hated her. His hands stilled. They'll celebrate if she dies. Unless we stop them. A soft knock interrupted them. A guard entered, his expression grim. Your Majesty. We found something in Lord Varric's private study. His assistant was bribed to let us search while he's with the council. The guard placed a leather-bound ledger on Kale's desk. Financial records. Payments to the royal physician going back 4 months. Large sums. And orders for shadow nightshade from a black market dealer in the outer districts. Kale's eyes blazed with cold fury as he flipped through the pages.
He documented it.
The arrogant fool actually kept records. Is that enough? Alara asked. Can you arrest him? Not yet. He'll claim the records are forgeries, that we planted them to frame him. I need more. Witnesses, physical evidence, something undeniable. Kale closed the ledger carefully. But it's a start. The guard shifted uncomfortably. There's something else, Your Majesty. The ledger mentions a second phase. After the Queen's death, there are payments scheduled too. Well, it doesn't say specifically, but the amounts increase significantly. And there's a note. Remove the air. The temperature in the room seemed to drop. He's planning to kill me too, Kale said calmly, but Alara saw his knuckles go white as he gripped the desk. He's not just after the throne. He wants to wipe out the entire royal line. Alara's protective instincts flared. What about Liam? If Varric knows, we can heal the queen. He'll want you eliminated. Kale's gaze shifted to the sleeping boy. Both of you. You're the only obstacle to a second attempt. Then we need to move faster. Agreed. Kale straightened, and Alara saw the king beneath the exhausted young man. Tonight, at the council session, we give them a show. You demonstrate your control, prove you're helping us willingly. Then, while they're distracted by the spectacle, my guards will search Varric's chambers more thoroughly. He has to have the physical poison somewhere. Once we find it, we'll have him. And if we don't find it, Kale's smile was sharp and cold. Then I'll arrest him anyway and dare the council to object. I'm done playing by rules that get my family killed. Alara looked at Liam again, then back at Kale. Okay, tell me what to do. Convince them, Kale said simply, that you're not a monster. Just a mother trying to protect her son. That, Alara said quietly, I can do, because it was the truest thing in her world. The council chamber was designed to intimidate. Alara stood in the center of a circular room, surrounded by 13 stone seats arranged in ascending tiers. Each seat held a vampire lord or lady, draped in the colors of their ancient houses. Torches cast flickering shadows across their faces, making them look more like predators than politicians. Lord Varric sat directly across from the entrance, positioned highest, a symbolic challenge to Kale's authority. His expression was serene, almost pleasant, but Alara saw the calculation in his eyes. Kale stood beside his mother's empty seat at the chamber's head. The queen was too weak to attend, despite her improvement. Or perhaps, Alara thought, Kale wanted her safely away from whatever was about to happen. Members of the council, Kale began, his voice echoing off the stone. You've called this emergency session to address the presence of Alara Chen and her son within the palace. I'm prepared to answer your concerns. Concerns? Lord Varric leaned forward. Your Majesty, with respect, this goes beyond mere concern. This woman possesses unknown power. She is an uncontrolled variable in our midst. The boy as well. A murmur of agreement rippled through the chamber. Lady Helena, an ancient vampire with white hair coiled like a crown, spoke next. We've reviewed Dr. Reeves's findings. The Dawnline bloodline was extinct for good reason. Their power was too unpredictable, too dangerous. They could heal, yes, but they could also purify vampire blood until it burned from within. Have I hurt anyone? Alara's voice rang out before she could stop herself. Have I done anything except help the queen? Yet, Varric said smoothly. You haven't hurt anyone yet. But you don't even understand your own abilities, by your own admission. What happens when you lose control? When that power lashes out? What happens, Kale interjected coldly, is that my mother lives. Or, would you prefer she had died, uncle? The temperature in the room dropped several degrees. Several council members shifted uncomfortably. How dare you imply, Varric started. I imply nothing. I state facts. Kale descended from his platform, moving to stand beside Alara. This woman saved the queen's life when every vampire physician had given up. Her son's presence accelerates healing beyond anything we've seen. They are not a threat. They are an unprecedented opportunity. Lord Marcus, a broad-shouldered vampire with a scar across his jaw, stood. An opportunity to what, Your Majesty? Depend on humans for our survival. make ourselves vulnerable to their whims. An opportunity, Kale said, to prove that cooperation between our species benefits everyone. To show that power shared is stronger than power hoarded. Pretty words, Varric said. But the council requires more than philosophy. We require proof. Proof that this woman can control her ability. Proof that she won't accidentally or deliberately harm vampires instead of healing them. Alara felt the trap closing. What kind of proof? Varric's smile was razor-thin. A demonstration. Use your power on a volunteer. Show us you can heal without causing harm. Show us you're as much in control as the king claims. And if I refuse, then we must assume you cannot control it. And uncontrolled power, Miss Chun, must be contained. For everyone's safety, you understand. Alara's hands clenched at her sides. She wanted to scream that she was a waitress, not a performing animal. That she had a son who needed her. That none of this was her choice. But she saw Kale's slight nod, the signal they'd discussed. This was the moment. Give them their show. Buy time for his guards to search Varric's chambers.
Fine, she said.
I'll do it. Who volunteers? Silence. The council members looked at each other, but no one moved. Despite their demands, none of them wanted to be the test subject. The fear was palpable. I thought so, Alara said quietly. You want proof, but you're too scared to. I volunteer. A young vampire stepped out of the shadows where the guard stood. He couldn't be more than 20 in appearance, with nervous eyes and hands that trembled slightly as he approached. State your name, Kale commanded. Thomas Wright, Your Majesty. Palace Guard, 3rd year of service. He glanced at Alara. I have an old injury. Training accident last month. My shoulder doesn't heal right. Still hurts. If she could fix it, I'd be grateful. Varric looked annoyed that someone had actually volunteered, but he couldn't object without looking like a coward. Very well. Proceed. Thomas removed his jacket and rolled up his sleeve, revealing a jagged scar on his shoulder. Poorly healed, the tissue thick and twisted. Alara could see how it would cause chronic pain. She approached him slowly. I've never tried this deliberately before. It might not work. That's okay, ma'am. I trust you. His eyes were sincere, kind even. You saved the queen. That's good enough for me. Alara took a deep breath and placed her hand over his scar. At first, nothing happened. She felt foolish standing there, 13 vampire lords watching her fail. But then she remembered that moment in the queen's chamber, the warmth, the light, the feeling of life flowing where it was needed. She closed her eyes and searched for that feeling again.
There.
A spark of warmth in her chest, like a candle flame. She focused on it, coaxing it larger, warmer, brighter. Then she imagined it flowing down her arm, through her hand, into Thomas's damaged shoulder. Gold light blazed between her palm and his skin. Thomas gasped. The council chamber erupted in shocked whispers. Alara kept her eyes closed, concentrating. She could feel the injury under her hand, torn muscle fibers, damaged nerves, scar tissue that had formed wrong. The light flowed into each imperfection, knitting and smoothing and healing. When she finally opened her eyes and pulled her hand back, Thomas's shoulder was perfect. Smooth skin, no scar, no pain. He rotated his arm experimentally, his face breaking into a wide smile. It's gone. It doesn't hurt at all. He looked at Alara with something like worship. Thank you. Thank you so much. The council was silent, processing what they'd witnessed. Then Lady Helena spoke, her voice thoughtful. Impressive. But healing a simple injury is one thing. The Domline's true danger lay in their ability to purify, to harm as well as heal. I would never, Alara started. Prove it, Varric interrupted. Heal someone whose condition is less sympathetic. Someone whose life the council would not mourn. A prisoner, perhaps. One of the blood thieves from the dungeons. Kale's expression went hard. Absolutely not. I won't have her exposed to. Then we vote, Varric announced, standing. All in favor of immediate containment of the Dawnline heir and her offspring, until such time as we can fully verify the extent and control of her abilities. Indicate now. Hands rose around the chamber.
1,
3,
5.
7. 7 out of 13. A majority. Alara's blood turned to ice. Liam. They take Liam. This vote is premature, Cale said, his voice deadly calm. I haven't finished presenting evidence. What evidence could possibly? The chamber doors burst open. 2 guards rushed in, carrying a wooden box. They knelt before Cale, one of them speaking rapidly. Your Majesty, we found it. In Lord Varric's private storage room, hidden behind a false panel. Multiple vials of Shadow Nightshade, records of purchase, and correspondence with a supplier. They opened the box. Inside, nestled in velvet, were 6 crystal vials filled with dark liquid. And beneath them, papers covered in Varric's distinctive handwriting. The council erupted. Varric shot to his feet, his composure finally cracking. Those are forgeries. I've been framed. Your Majesty, you cannot possibly believe. I believe, Cale said softly, dangerously, that you've been poisoning my mother for months, that you plan to kill me next, and that you've used this council session as a distraction while you arranged for the human woman and her son to be eliminated. He nodded to the guards. Search him. They grabbed Varric before he could resist. One guard pulled a small vial from the inner pocket of Varric's robe, identical to those in the box. The dark liquid inside seemed to absorb the torchlight. Planning another dose for tonight?
Cale asked.
Or was this for me? Varric's face twisted with rage. You're fool, nephew. Weakening our kind with human sympathies. Your mother has poisoned your mind far more effectively than I poison her body. She's made you soft. Made us vulnerable. No, Cale said quietly. She made me better than you. He turned to the council. Lord Varric is hereby stripped of his titles and lands. He will be held in the deepest cell while we investigate the full extent of his conspiracy. And this vote, he gestured at their raised hands, is nullified. Ms. Chun and her son remain under my protection. Does anyone object? Slowly, the hands lowered. No one objected. As the guards dragged Varric away, still shouting about tradition and vampire purity, Alara felt her legs start to shake. It was over. They were safe.
For now.
The royal library was a cathedral of books. 3 stories of shelves stretched toward a vaulted ceiling painted with constellations. Moonlight filtered through stained glass windows, casting patterns of blue and silver across the marble floor. Alara walked slowly through the stacks, Liam's hand tightened hers, while Cale led them deeper into the maze of knowledge. This wing hasn't been opened in decades, Cale said, stopping before a set of ornate doors carved with roses and thorns. My mother's sanctuary, before she became queen. After my father died, she couldn't bear to come here anymore. He pressed his palm against the wood, and ancient locks clicked open. The room beyond took Alara's breath away. It was a garden preserved in time, real plants somehow thriving without sunlight, their leaves shimmering with a faint magical glow. Stone benches nestled among flower beds. A fountain trickled peacefully in the center. Books lined the walls, but these weren't dusty tomes. They were journals, sketchbooks, personal collections. Whoa, Liam whispered. It's like a fairy tale. My mother loved growing things, Cale said softly. Said it reminded her that even in darkness, life finds a way. He gestured around the space. You'll be safe here. Varric's arrest has made the council nervous. Until I know who else might have been involved in his conspiracy, I want you somewhere only I can access. We're hiding, Alara said. You're being protected. There's a difference. Cale walked to a bookshelf and pulled out a leather journal. My mother kept records of the Dawnline. Stories passed down, fragments of history. She was fascinated by them. Maybe there's something here that can help you understand your power. He handed her the journal. The leather was soft with age, the pages filled with elegant handwriting. "Thank you," Alara said quietly, "for believing us, for fighting the council. Thank my mother. She's the one who taught me that power means nothing if you don't use it to protect those who can't protect themselves." Kale moved toward the door, then paused. "There are guards outside, but they're loyal to me personally.
If you need anything, ask."
And Miss Chun, his gray eyes met hers. "Stay vigilant. Varek may be locked up, but he had allies. This isn't over." After he left, Alara settled onto a bench while Liam explored the garden, marveling at the glowing plants. She opened the Queen's journal and began to read. The entries spanned decades. Queen Lysandra had been collecting Dawnline stories since she was young, tales of healers who could cure plague with a touch, who could draw poison from wounds, who could even calm violent madness with their presence. But there were darker stories, too, of Dawnline healers who'd been captured and bled dry, their power harvested until nothing remained. Of families murdered to prevent the bloodline from continuing. Of children hidden away, their gifts suppressed out of fear. One entry, dated 40 years ago, made Alara's hands shake. "Today I met a woman named Ariane. She came to the palace in secret, desperate and afraid. She told me she was the last of the Dawnline, hunted by vampire extremists who believe her kind threatens our dominance. She'd saved young Prince Kale from blood fever when our own physicians failed, but now she must flee. I wanted to offer her protection, but she refused. 'My presence puts you in danger,' she said. 'But my daughter is safe, hidden among humans. The light will sleep in her blood, and her children's blood, until the world is ready for it again.' I gave her money and safe passage. I never saw her again. I think of her often. I wonder if her daughter survived. I wonder if the light truly sleeps, or if it merely waits." "Mom?" Liam appeared beside her. "You're crying." Alara touched her cheek, surprised to find tears. "I'm okay, baby.
Just
reading about our family." "The magic family?"
"Yeah."
"The magic family." She pulled him close. "Your great-great-great-grandmother saved Kale when he was little, before he was king. She gave up everything to keep her daughter, and us, safe." Liam processed this with the seriousness of childhood. "So we're like superheroes' great-grandkids." "Something like that." Over the next several days, the hidden garden became their world. The Queen visited daily, growing stronger with each visit. She and Liam developed a routine: chess in the mornings, stories in the afternoons. Lysandra taught him about vampire history, careful to include the mistakes and cruelties alongside the triumphs. In return, Liam taught her about video games and showed her terrible jokes from his school joke book. The guards assigned to protect them were young vampires, chosen by Kale for their loyalty and, Alara suspected, their humanity. Thomas, the guard she'd healed, became Liam's shadow and unofficial bodyguard. Others warmed to them gradually. One evening, Alara found Thomas struggling with a handwritten letter, his face scrunched in concentration. "Everything okay?" she asked. He looked up, embarrassed. "My sister's birthday is next week. I'm trying to write something nice, but I was never good with words. School wasn't really. We couldn't afford much schooling, and then I joined the Guard young. Can I help?" Together, they crafted a letter that made Thomas's eyes shine with gratitude. Word spread among the guards, and soon Alara found herself helping them with various tasks, writing letters home, treating small injuries that vampire healing handled slowly, even teaching basic reading to a young guard who'd never learned. She sang while she worked, old songs her mother had taught her. Lullabies in Mandarin, folk songs in English. The music seemed to ease the eternal twilight of the vampire palace, bringing warmth to cold stone. Kale appeared one evening while she was bandaging a guard's burned hand, an accident with silver, which vampire healing couldn't fix. He watched from the doorway as she worked, his expression unreadable. After the guard left, he approached. "You're making them love you. I'm just helping where I can. You're showing them compassion, teaching them that humans aren't weak or inferior, just different." He sat on the bench beside her, and Alara noticed how exhausted he looked. My mother was right about you. What did she say? That you saved more than her life. That you're saving something in all of us. He was quiet for a moment. I've been king for 5 years. I've tried to reform laws, improve human rights, bridge the divide between our species. But I've done it through legislation and force. You're doing it just by being yourself. By being kind. Alara felt heat rise to her cheeks. I'm not special. I'm just. Don't. His voice was soft but firm. Don't diminish what you are. What you've given us. Their eyes met, and Alara felt something shift between them, a warmth that had nothing to do with her healing power. She saw past the crown and the cold authority to the young man beneath. Someone who carried impossible weight alone. Someone who'd probably never had anyone just be kind to him without wanting something in return. Your Majesty.
Kale, he said.
When we're here, just. Kale. Kale, she repeated, testing the name. You're giving us shelter and protection. But you look like you haven't slept in days. Let someone take care of you too. He smiled, a real smile, small but genuine. Is that your professional opinion, Ms. Chen? It's Alara. And yes, it is. She stood, suddenly shy. I should check on Liam. He's probably trying to teach your mother about Minecraft again. As she walked toward the garden, she heard Kale's quiet voice behind her. Thank you, Alara. For everything. She didn't turn around, afraid he'd see how his words affected her. Afraid he'd see that somewhere between the terror and the strangeness and the danger, she'd started to care about the vampire king with sad eyes and a kingdom that wanted to break him. In the garden, the queen and Liam were indeed discussing Minecraft, Lysandra listening with exaggerated confusion as Liam tried to explain redstone circuits. The queen caught Alara's eye and smiled, knowing, warm, with a hint of mischief. She knew, Alara realized. The queen saw what was growing between her son and the human woman he'd sworn to protect. And unless Alara was mistaken, she approved. But outside their sanctuary, in the dark halls of the palace, danger still lurked. Varric was imprisoned but not defeated. His allies remained hidden. And the conspiracy that had nearly killed a queen was far from over. The light had awakened, yes. But so had the shadows. Queen Lysandra stood before an old portrait, her hand trembling against the frame. Alara had found her there an hour after sunrise, alone in the sealed wings gallery, a room Kale hadn't shown them before. Portraits lined the walls, depicting people from decades past. Humans and vampires together, from a time before the divide grew so wide. Your Majesty? Alara approached carefully. Are you all right? The queen didn't turn. I thought I was imagining it, the resemblance. But now, seeing you here in this light, she stepped aside, revealing the portrait she'd been studying. Alara's breath caught. The painting showed a woman in her 30s, wearing simple clothes from the 1920s. She stood in a garden not unlike the one where Liam now slept, surrounded by flowers that seemed to glow with inner light. Her face was serene, gentle, with dark hair and eyes that held ancient wisdom. The woman could have been Alara's older sister. Ariane of Light, the queen whispered. Painted in 1924, shortly before she disappeared. She saved my stepson, Kale's father, from blood fever when he was just a boy. I was already married to the king then, but Kale's father was from his first marriage. Ariane came in secret, healed him when our best physicians said he would die. Then she vanished. Alara moved closer to the portrait, her skin prickling with recognition. Your journal mentioned her. You wrote that she had a daughter.
She did.
She told me her daughter was hidden safely among humans, that the gift would sleep in her bloodline. The queen finally turned to face Alara. You're not just similar to Ariane. You have her exact eyes. The same hands. The same way of tilting your head when you're thinking. She's my ancestor, it wasn't a question. More than that, I think. Your great-great-grandmother, perhaps? The timeline fits. If Ariane had a daughter in the early 1920s and that daughter had a child, and so on, the queen's voice grew stronger with certainty. The dawn line didn't die. It just went quiet, sleeping through generations, waiting. Waiting for what? For this.
For now.
For a time when the world was ready to accept it again, the queen moved to another portrait, this one showing a young vampire boy, perhaps 8 years old, pale and sickly in a grand bed. This is Cale's father during the blood fever. The illness should have killed him. Without Ariane, the royal line would have ended. Cale would never have been born. The implications settled over Alara like snow. So, I'm here because my great-great-grandmother saved your family a century ago. Fate, the queen said softly, or something like it. Ariane saved us then. You saved us now. The light returns when we need it most. A sound at the door made them both turn. Dr. Reeves entered, tablet in hand, her expression urgent. Your Majesty, I've been analyzing the blood samples. Comparing Alara's DNA to historical records we have from Ariane, a few cells preserved on a handkerchief she left behind. The match is undeniable. Direct matrilineal descent, 4 generations. 4 generations of women, Alara murmured, thinking of her mother, her grandmother, great-grandmother, women who'd worked hard, loved fiercely, and died without ever knowing they carried magic in their blood. The gift only activates under specific conditions, Dr. Reeves continued. Extreme emotional stress combined with proximity to death or suffering. Your mother and grandmother probably lived normal lives, never triggering the dormant power. But you, she looked at Alara with something like awe, you've been under chronic stress for years. Single mother, financial struggles, constantly in survival mode. When you touched the queen, your body was already primed. The power awakened because it had to. And Liam? He inherited it from you, already partially awakened because you activated it during your pregnancy. He was born with it closer to the surface. That's why his presence amplifies healing. He's a second-generation active Dawnline. The queen moved to a cabinet and withdrew a wooden box, ancient and carved with intricate symbols. After Ariane left, I kept something she gave me. I never told anyone about it, not even my husband. I think I knew I was supposed to save it. For her descendant. She opened the box. Inside, nestled in faded silk, was a leather journal and a small glass pendant that glowed with soft golden light. Ariane's personal writings, the queen said, handing the journal to Alara. And her mother's pendant. She said it was passed down through every Dawnline woman, absorbing a piece of their light. She wanted me to keep it safe until her bloodline returned. Alara's hands shook as she took the pendant. The moment her fingers closed around it, warmth flooded through her. Not painful, but overwhelming. Images flashed behind her eyes. A woman healing plague victims in a medieval village. Another calming a battlefield's wounded. Ariane herself, young and afraid, cradling a baby girl while vampire hunters closed in. Her daughter, grown now, hiding her light to protect her own children. Generations of women, each carrying the gift in secret, each passing it forward like a sacred trust. And finally, herself, standing in the queen's chamber, accidentally completing a circle that began 100 years ago. When the visions faded, tears streamed down Alara's face. They were all so afraid. Every one of them. Afraid of what they could do, of being hunted, of losing their families. But they survived, the queen said gently. And their fear became your strength. You're not running, Alara. You're standing and fighting. You're everything they hoped their descendant would be. I don't feel strong. I feel terrified.
Good.
Fear keeps you careful. It's those who feel no fear who make fatal mistakes. The queen clasped Alara's hands around the pendant. Wear this. Let it remind you that you come from a line of survivors. Of healers who chose compassion over hatred, even when hatred would have been easier. Alara fastened the pendant around her neck. It settled against her chest, warm and right, like coming home. Your Majesty. A guard burst through the door, his face pale. Lord Varric, someone helped him escape from the dungeons. He's gone. The warmth of the moment shattered, like glass. The queen's expression hardened. When? Within the last hour, the guards were found unconscious, the cell opened from the outside. He had help from inside the palace. Dr. Reeves moved protectively closer to Alara. He'll come for them. For the Dawnline heir. He said as much during his arrest. Where's Kale? The Queen demanded. In the throne room, Your Majesty. He's already mobilizing. Mom. Liam's scream cut through the guard's words. Alara ran, her heart in her throat, bursting into the garden room to find Liam backed against the fountain, eyes wide with terror. Thomas lay unconscious at his feet, and standing in the doorway, blocking the only exit, was Lord Varric. He looked different now, his refined composure stripped away, replaced by cold rage. Blood stained his sleeve. His eyes burned with hatred. The little light bearer, Varric said softly.
So young.
So powerful. Imagine what the old lords would pay for his blood. For a child who can make vampires immune to their weaknesses. Stay away from him. Alara positioned herself between Varric and Liam, the pendant at her throat blazing brighter. Varric smiled, and it was a terrible thing. Or what? You'll heal me to death. The Dawnline's power is compassion, little woman. You can't hurt me. You don't have it in you. He was right, Alara realized with horror. Her power was life, not death. She could heal, not harm. But she could protect. As Varric lunged forward, Alara grabbed the pendant and focused every ounce of fear, love, and desperate hope into it. The golden light exploded outward, not to harm, but to shield. A barrier of pure radiance surrounded Liam, so bright Varric had to shield his eyes. He snarled, reaching for the light, but his hand couldn't penetrate it. The barrier held firm.
Impossible, Varric bretted.
You're not strong enough to. She's not alone. The Queen stood in the doorway, her hands also glowing with borrowed light. Behind her, Kale appeared with a dozen guards. And Alara understood. The pendant wasn't just storing power. It was connecting her to every Dawnline woman who'd ever worn it. Their strength flowed through her, a century of courage made manifest. She wasn't fighting alone. She'd never been alone. Varric's eyes darted between the Queen, Kale, and the glowing barrier protecting Liam. For a heartbeat, he looked almost uncertain. Then his expression twisted into something savage. You think this changes anything? He backed toward the far wall where another door stood hidden. You think capturing me ends this? I'm not the disease, nephew. I'm just the symptom. Half the council agrees with me. Vampires should rule. Humans should serve. Your mother's weakness, your pathetic human sympathies, they're destroying our kingdom. The only thing destroying this kingdom, Kale said coldly, is lords who value power over peace. Peace. Varric laughed, harsh and bitter. There is no peace. There never was. Just a temporary truce while we decide who dominates. His hand moved to his belt. And I've already decided. He threw something small and glass. It shattered at Kale's feet, releasing thick purple smoke that flooded the room. The guards shouted, stumbling back, temporarily blinded. Through the chaos, Alara heard Varric's boots on stone running. She couldn't see anything through the smoke, but she felt Liam's presence inside the barrier, safe, terrified, but alive. Mom, his voice was muffled by the golden shield. Stay inside the light, Alara called. Don't drop it no matter what. The smoke began to clear. Varric was gone through the hidden door, leaving only Thomas groaning on the floor and guards coughing. Kale barked orders, sending half his men after Varric while the others secured the room. The Queen moved to Alara's side, her hand touching the barrier gently. You can lower it now, dear. He's gone. Alara let the light fade, and Liam rushed into her arms, shaking. She held him tight while her mind raced. Varric had help from inside the palace. Someone had freed him. Someone close enough to access the dungeons without suspicion. Your Majesty, a guard captain entered, his face grim. We found the dungeon guards. Both dead. Throats torn. And there's something else. Lord Varric didn't just escape. He stole something from the treasury before he fled. Cale's expression darkened. What did he take? The Nightfall Ledger. Records of every vampire house's secrets, debts, and alliances going back 3 centuries. With that, he can blackmail half the nobility. He'll have an army by nightfall. The Queen's face went pale. He's planning a coup. Not just against us, against the entire council. He'll use those secrets to force loyalty or destroy anyone who refuses. We need to find him, Cale said.
Now.
Before a young vampire burst into the room, nearly falling in his haste. Your Majesty, the lower palace is under attack. Lord Varric's supporters, they're armed and moving through the servant quarters. They've taken hostages. Alara's blood turned to ice. Hostages.
Humans, mum.
Kitchen staff, cleaners, drivers. Maybe 20 people. They're holding them in the Great Hall, demanding the king's surrender that he swallowed hard. The Dawnline heir and her child in exchange for the hostages' lives. The words hit Alara like a physical blow.
No.
No, you can't. Those people have families, children. Which is exactly why Varric chose them. Cale's voice was steady, but his hands were clenched white. He knows I won't sacrifice innocent lives. He's forcing my hand. So we give him what he wants, Alara said immediately. Liam and I will go. You save those people. Absolutely not, Cale rounded on her. He'll kill you both the moment he has you. And then he'll kill the hostages anyway because he doesn't need them anymore. Then what do we do? Alara's voice cracked. Let them die. We outsmart him. The Queen's voice cut through the panic like a blade. Varric expects Cale to charge in with guards, to try to overwhelm his position with force. So we do the opposite. She turned to Alara. You said you can control your healing power now. Can you extend it beyond touch? Can you project it? I don't know. Maybe? The barrier around Liam was defensive, the Queen interrupted. But the Dawnline's true power isn't barriers. It's connection. Ariane once told me she could feel the life force of everyone in a room. Could sense who was hurt, who was dying. Could you do that? Could you find where Varric's holding the hostages? Alara closed her eyes, reaching for that golden warmth inside her. She'd never tried to extend it outward without touching someone. But the pendant at her throat pulsed encouragingly, as if all those ancestral mothers were whispering, Try.
Trust.
You're stronger than you know. She let the light expand, tentative at first, then stronger. It spread like ripples on water, flowing through the walls, down corridors, seeking life. There, 23 human heartbeats clustered together, rapid with fear. Deeper in the palace, lower levels. Surrounded by 14 vampire signatures, cold and hostile. And one presence that burned with bitter rage. Varric. The old banquet hall, Alara gasped, opening her eyes. Basement level, west wing. 23 hostages, 14 vampires including Varric. Some of the humans are hurt. I can feel injuries, fear. Can you heal them from here? Cale asked urgently. I don't think so. The distance is too far and I've never. But you could if you were closer. Close enough to touch, he was already moving, pulling on armor a guard handed him. Here's what we do. I take the main force. Create a distraction at the front entrance. Varric will expect that. Meanwhile, Alara and a small team use the servant passages to approach from behind. When everyone's focused on me, she heals the hostages, gives them strength to fight or run. You're asking her to walk into danger, the Queen protested. I'm asking her to save lives. Which is what she does. Cale met Alara's eyes. I won't order you, but if you're willing. I'm willing. Alara's voice was steady despite her terror. But Liam stays here. Protected. I'll guard him with my life, the Queen promised. No one will touch him while I breathe. Liam grabbed Alara's hand. Mom, don't go.
Please.
What if something happens to you? Alara knelt, taking her son's face in her hands. Baby, those people down there, they're like us. They're scared, and they need help. And I can help them. I have to try, she kissed his forehead. I'll come back. I promise. You better, Liam said fiercely. You're the only mom I got. 5 minutes later, Alara found herself following three of Kale's most trusted guards through a narrow passage that smelled of old stone and secrets. Thomas was with them, his healed shoulder allowing him to move silently. He stayed close to Alara, his hand on his weapon. If anything goes wrong, he whispered, you run. Don't try to be a hero. Just run. I'm not a hero, Alara whispered back. I'm just a mom who refuses to let innocent people die. That's what heroes say. They reached a junction point. Through a crack in the wall, Alara could see the old banquet hall. The hostages were huddled in the center, surrounded by Varric supporters. Most were vampire lords she recognized from the council, older nobles who'd opposed every reform Kale had ever proposed. And there, at the front, was Varric. He held a blade to the throat of a young woman, one of the palace cooks. Alara recognized her. She'd served them breakfast 3 days ago, had smiled at Liam's terrible joke about why vampires don't eat soup. Where is he? Varric shouted toward the main doors. Where's the boy king who values human cattle over his own kind? I'm waiting, Kale. Send out the Dawnline heir, or I start executing hostages. You have 5 minutes. A crash echoed from the front of the palace. Kale's distraction, right on time. That's our cue, Thomas whispered. Stay low. Stay quiet. They moved like shadows, using overturned furniture and stone pillars for cover. Alara's heart hammered so loud, she was sure everyone could hear it. But the vampires were all focused on the main entrance, waiting for Kale's forces to attack. 50 feet from the hostages.
40.
30. One of the vampire lords turned, his eyes going wide. Behind us. But Alara was already reaching out, letting the light explode from her hands in a wave of pure healing energy. It washed over the hostages like warm rain. She felt their injuries mend, bruised ribs knitting, cut lips closing, terror easing enough for them to think clearly. Run, she screamed.
Now.
The hostages scattered. Kale's guards burst through the main entrance at the same moment, creating chaos. Varric's supporters spun between two threats, confused and outmaneuvered. But Varric himself never looked away from Alara. There you are, he said softly, letting the cook drop as he advanced. The little light-bearer. I knew you couldn't resist playing hero. He moved faster than Alara could track. One moment he was 20 feet away. The next his hand was around her throat, lifting her off the ground. Did you really think, Varric hissed, that your parlor tricks could stop me? I've lived 3 centuries. I've survived wars, plagues, and purges. And I'll survive you. Alara couldn't breathe. Black spots danced in her vision. But even as panic flooded her, she reached for the light one more time. Not to heal, not to shield. To show him the truth. She pressed her palm against Varric's chest and let him see everything. Every memory of Liam's childhood, every night she'd worked until her feet bled, every moment of fear and hope and desperate love that had shaped her life. The humanity he called weakness, the compassion he called disease. This, she gasped out, is what you'll never understand. Varric's eyes widened. For just a second, she saw something flicker in them, recognition, maybe even regret. Then steel flashed, and everything went dark. Alara fell, but she never hit the ground. Kale caught her, his movements impossibly fast. Varric's blade had been meant for her heart, but Kale's body had intercepted, the knife buried deep in his shoulder instead. Blood, dark and red, spread across his shirt.
No.
Varric staggered back, staring at his nephew in shock. You took the blow for a human? Kale lowered Alara gently, his face pale with pain but his voice steady. I told you. I'm not you. Guards swarmed Varric before he could strike again. This time, they used silver chains, unbreakable, burning against vampire skin. Varric screamed as they bound him, the metal searing into his wrists. Around the hall, the coup was collapsing. Varroc's supporters found themselves outnumbered and outmaneuvered. Some surrendered. Others tried to flee but were caught at the exits. Within minutes, it was over. Alara pushed herself up, her throat bruised but intact, and reached for Kale. "You're hurt, let me." "The hostages first," Kale said through gritted teeth. "Make sure they're safe." She wanted to argue, but his eyes were commanding. King's eyes. So she turned to the rescued humans, checking each one, letting her healing light flow wherever it was needed. Bruises faded. Broken bones mended. Terror slowly eased into relief. Thomas helped her move through the crowd, supporting those too weak to stand. The young cook Varroc had threatened was crying, clutching Alara's hand like a lifeline. "Thank you," she kept saying. "Thank you. Thank you." "You're safe now," Alara assured her. "It's over." But even as she said it, she knew it wasn't entirely true. Varroc was captured, yes, but the rot went deeper. He'd had supporters, nobles who'd helped him escape, who'd joined his attack. The council was fractured, divided between those who believed in Kale's vision and those who clung to the old ways. When the last hostage was healed, Alara finally returned to Kale. He'd removed the blade himself. She could see it on the ground, bloodied, and was trying to staunch the wound with a torn piece of cloth. His face was too pale. "Stubborn," she muttered, pushing his hand away. "Let me work." She placed her palm over the wound, feeling the torn muscle and damaged tissue beneath. The light flowed warm and steady, knitting everything back together. As she worked, she was acutely aware of how close they stood, how his gray eyes watched her face with an expression she couldn't quite read. "You could have died," Kale said quietly. "Varroc was going to kill you, but you stopped him." Her hands trembled slightly. "You got stabbed for me."
For you. For them.
"For everything my mother taught me was worth protecting." He touched her bruised throat gently with his fingertips. "Are you all right?" "I will be." The healing was almost complete. She could feel his skin knitting under her palm, strong and whole again. "Kale, those nobles who helped Varroc will face justice." His voice hardened. "All of them." A commotion at the entrance made them both turn. The queen swept in, Liam running ahead of her. Her son crashed into Alara with enough force to nearly knock her over.
Mom.
"Mom, are you okay?" The queen said, "You fought Varroc, and—" "I'm fine, baby." "I'm fine." She held him tight, breathing in his familiar scent, grounding herself. "It's over." The queen moved to where Varroc knelt in chains, surrounded by guards. She looked down at her brother-in-law with something like sadness. "I gave you everything," she said softly. "Position.
Wealth.
A place of honor in this court. All I asked was loyalty. You gave me scraps," Varroc spat. "While you played at reforming society, making us weak, letting humans forget their place." "No," the queen's voice cracked like a whip. "I tried to make us better than our worst impulses. You couldn't see that mercy isn't weakness. That compassion isn't surrender." She straightened. "Guards, take him to the deepest cell. This time, he'll be guarded by those loyal only to Kale. No more council members with access. No more chances." As they dragged Varroc away, he twisted to look at Alara. "This isn't over. The old lords will never accept you. Your child will never be safe among us." "Then perhaps," Kale said coldly, "the old lords need to learn adaptation. Or extinction." The guards hauled Varroc through the doors. His shouts echoed and faded. Dr. Reeves appeared with her medical team, checking the freed hostages and documenting injuries. She approached the queen with her tablet. "Your Majesty, I've compiled evidence from Varroc's chambers. Financial records showing payments to 6 council members, bribes for their support. Correspondence planning the coup in detail. And this," she pulled up a document, a confession he'd prepared, blaming the king for the queen's poisoning. He planned to take the throne by portraying Kale as the true traitor. "Ambitious," the queen said dryly. "And stupid." He documented everything. "His arrogance was always his weakness," Kale said. He turned to address the guards and freed hostages. You've all shown incredible courage tonight. Every human here will receive compensation and protection. And every vampire who stood with us will be honored. We don't forget loyalty. One of the older hostages, a man who worked in the stables, stepped forward hesitantly. Your Majesty, if I may, that woman, the one who healed us, she risked her life for humans she'd never met. In all my years serving this palace, I've never seen a vampire do that. But a human did. She did. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the group. The young cook nodded, wiping tears. She's one of us. She understands. Kale looked at Alara, and she saw something shift in his expression. She's taught me understanding too. All of you have, he raised his voice, addressing everyone in the hall. Tonight proved something I've believed for years, that our species are stronger together than divided. That old hatreds serve no one but those who profit from fear. He moved to stand beside his mother, presenting a united front. Tomorrow, I'm convening a full council session. I'm presenting evidence of Lord Varric's conspiracy, and I'm calling for votes on every council member who aided him. Those who betrayed the kingdom will face exile or imprisonment. And then, his voice strengthened. We're going to rebuild. New laws. New protections. A new council with positions open to vampires who understand that reform isn't weakness. The Queen took his hand. And I'll be there beside you. Thanks to the woman who saved my life twice now, she smiled at Alara. The Dawn Line has returned. Not as a threat, but as a bridge. Perhaps that's what Arian meant all those years ago, that her bloodline would return when we most needed to remember our shared humanity. Liam tugged Alara's hand. Mom, does this mean we can stay? We don't have to hide anymore? Alara looked around the hall, at the freed hostages who'd stood in solidarity with her, at Thomas and the young guards who'd risked everything, at the Queen who'd protected Liam, at Kale who'd taken a blade meant for her. I think, she said slowly, we're exactly where we need to be. But even as relief flooded through her, Alara noticed the shadows in the corners where some nobles still lingered, their expressions unreadable. Varric was captured, his immediate conspiracy crushed. But hatred didn't die with one arrest. And the real work, changing hearts, building bridges, teaching old predators new ways, was just beginning. Still, for tonight, they'd won. For tonight, that was enough. The council chamber looked different in daylight. Kale had ordered the heavy curtains pulled back, flooding the ancient room with morning sun. Several older vampires shifted uncomfortably in the light, but no one dared complain. This session was being held at dawn deliberately, a statement about the new order. Alara stood beside the Queen's seat, Liam close to her side. They'd been given formal positions as honored guests of the crown, not quite council members, but present with the Queen's blessing. Dr. Reeves stood nearby with her documentation, ready to present evidence. The chamber was packed. Every remaining council member, dozens of nobles, representatives from the vampire houses. And, for the first time in palace history, a section had been designated for human witnesses, the hostages from 3 nights ago, along with palace staff who'd requested to attend. Kale stood at the center, wearing formal regalia that made him look every inch a king. His voice carried to every corner of the room. 3 nights ago, Lord Varric attempted a coup. He held innocent humans hostage. He attacked this palace with the intent to overthrow the crown and murder my mother. He paused, letting the words settle. But his conspiracy began months earlier, with a slow poisoning designed to look like natural decline. We have proof. Dr. Reeves stepped forward, projecting images onto a large screen, financial records, correspondence, vials of poison, medical reports. The evidence was damning and methodical. 6 council members received payments from Lord Varric in exchange for their support. Kale continued. Lord Marcus, Lady Thorne, Duchess Blackwell, Count Ashford, Lord Sterling, and Baroness Vale. They knew about the poisoning. Some actively helped cover it up. The named nobles sat frozen as guards moved to surround them. No one tried to run. The evidence was too overwhelming. You're exiling us for political disagreement? Lord Marcus challenged, his voice defiant even in defeat. For believing that vampires should govern vampires. No, Kale said coldly. I'm exiling you for treason. For conspiracy to commit murder. For attacking your own people and taking hostages. Your political beliefs are irrelevant compared to your crimes. The queen rose from her seat, fully recovered now, radiating authority. The sentence is exile to the wasteland territories. You'll be stripped of titles, lands, and wealth. You may take only what you can carry. And if any of you return to the capital, the sentence becomes death. This is mercy, Kale added. More than you showed my mother. More than you showed those hostages. Be grateful. I'm not my uncle. The guards escorted the 6 nobles out. Some went quietly. Others shouted protests that echoed off the stone. But within minutes, they were gone. The chamber felt lighter somehow, as if a weight had been lifted. Now, Kale said, his tone shifting from judgment to vision, we rebuild. The council will have 8 open seats. I'm proposing a new structure, 6 vampire representatives chosen by their houses and 2 human representatives chosen by the human communities in our territory. The chamber erupted. Some vampires shouted approval. Others protested loudly. The human witnesses looked shocked, hopeful, disbelieving. Humans on the council? An elderly vampire lord gasped. That's unprecedented. So, was a Dawnline healer saving the queen's life? Kale countered. So, was a human woman walking into danger to rescue hostages she'd never met. Unprecedented doesn't mean wrong. It means we're finally willing to evolve. Lady Helena, one of the few remaining ancient nobles, stood slowly. Alara tensed, expecting opposition. But the old vampire's expression was thoughtful. I remember, Helena said, her voice carrying centuries of memory, when vampires and humans worked together more commonly. Before fear and pride built walls between us. Perhaps the young king is not proposing something new, but something forgotten. She inclined her head. House Helena supports this measure. One by one, other houses pledged their support. Not all, some remained silent, their disapproval clear, but enough. A majority. The queen smiled, triumphant and tired. Then it settled. We'll hold elections within the month. A new council. A new beginning. Kale's gaze found Alara. And there's one more matter. Ms. Alara Chun and her son Liam have proven themselves invaluable to this kingdom. Not just through the gift they carry, but through their character. Their courage. Their compassion. He descended from his platform, approaching them directly. Liam straightened, trying to look brave. Alara's heart raced. I'm creating a new position, Kale announced. Keeper of Dawn. A role dedicated to bridging our 2 species, to healing divisions both literal and metaphorical. Ms. Chun, if you accept, you would serve as advisor on human affairs, healer to those in need, and ambassador between our peoples. Alara stared at him, overwhelmed. A position. Official recognition. Safety for Liam. Everything she'd never dared hope for. But then she thought of her cramped apartment, her neighborhood where humans struggled daily. The diner where she'd served pancakes to people who could barely afford them. The world beyond palace walls, where most humans never saw this kind of opportunity. I'm honored, she said carefully. But I can't stay here permanently. My people, humans in the outer districts, they need help too. They need to see that this change is real, not just palace politics. Kale smiled, and it transformed his whole face. I was hoping you'd say that. The position comes with resources. Funding to establish a healing house in your district. A place where humans and vampires can come for treatment, for mediation, for help. You'd split your time, some here, some there. Building bridges everywhere. Alara's throat tightened. A healing house. With staff.
Supplies.
Protection. Everything you need to help your community. He glanced at the queen, who nodded encouragingly. My mother suggested it. She said you'd never abandon your own people, no matter what we offered. She's right, Alara whispered. They're why I do this. Why any of this matters. Then say yes, Kale said softly, just for her. Let us help you help them. Alara looked down at Liam, who beamed up at her with pride. Then at the Queen, who watched with warm approval. Then at the human witnesses, some of whom were crying, understanding what this moment meant. Yes, she said. I accept. The chamber erupted in applause, not universal, but genuine. The sound of change happening, of history turning. As the session concluded and people began to disperse, the Queen pulled Alara aside. There's something else. The blessing. Your Majesty? The Queen's eyes sparkled with barely contained mischief. I'm not blind, child. I see how my son looks at you, how you look at him. And while I'll leave that to develop naturally or not, I want you to know something. She took Alara's hands. The union of your bloodlines, light and shadow, would be powerful. Symbolic. Perhaps that's too much pressure for now, but I give my blessing, whatever may come. Alara's face burned. We're not. It's not like that. Not yet, perhaps. The Queen patted her hand. I can wait. I'm patient. And now, thanks to you, I'll live long enough to see whatever unfolds. She swept away, leaving Alara flustered and confused and strangely hopeful. Kale approached as the chamber emptied. Walk with me? They strolled through the palace gardens, Liam running ahead to examine flowers. The morning sun painted everything gold. For the first time since arriving at the palace, Alara felt like she could breathe. Thank you, Kale said quietly. For everything. For saving my mother. For teaching my guards compassion. For being brave when we needed it most. I just did what anyone would do.
No.
You did what you chose to do. There's a difference. He paused by a fountain, watching the water sparkle. I know the healing house isn't the same as freedom. You're still tied to us, to this palace, to politics you never asked for. But I'm also helping people, Alara said. Really helping them. That's all I ever wanted. Then I'll make sure you can do exactly that. He turned to face her, and the morning light caught his eyes, softening their usual gray to something warmer. And maybe, when you're ready, you'll let me help too. Not as a king, just as someone who cares. Before Alara could respond, Liam called out, Mom, look at this flower. It glows. She smiled, the moment broken but not lost. Coming, baby. As she walked toward her son, she felt Kale's gaze following her.
Warm.
Wondering. Waiting. The palace had been a prison at first, then a sanctuary. Now, maybe, it was becoming something else entirely. Something like home. 6 months later. The healing house stood on the border between the human district and vampire territory, a deliberate choice. The building had once been a warehouse, but Kale's resources had transformed it into something beautiful. Large windows let in natural light. Gardens surrounded the entrance, planted by volunteers from both communities. A sign above the door read, Dawn House, Healing for All. Alara moved through the clinic with practiced efficiency, checking on patients. In one room, a human child with a broken arm. In another, a vampire suffering from silver poisoning. A mixed group sat in the waiting area, humans and vampires together, talking quietly, the old barriers slowly crumbling. Thomas worked as head of security now, though Alara suspected he spent more time helping patients than guarding. Dr. Reeves visited twice a week, teaching Alara advanced healing techniques and documenting the Dawnline's capabilities for future generations. Liam attended a new school, one that accepted both human and vampire children, another of Kale's reforms. He'd made friends from both species, and Alara often found them doing homework together in the healing house's library, arguing about math problems with the casual ease of children who'd never learned to hate. Miss Chen. A young vampire woman approached, nervous. I heard you help people regardless of. Well, regardless. I can't afford the vampire clinics and I'm sick and... Come with me, Alara said gently, leading her to a private room. Let's see what we can do. The healing took only minutes. The woman left crying with gratitude, pressing what little money she had into Alara's hands. Alara tried to refuse, but the woman insisted. You don't understand what this means, she whispered. Being treated like I matter. Like I'm worth saving. After she left, Alara stood by the window, watching the sun begin its descent. 6 months ago, she'd been a waitress barely making rent. Now she ran a clinic that treated hundreds of patients every week. She split her time between Dawn House and the palace, advising the new council, which now included 2 human representatives who'd been elected with overwhelming support. The changes weren't universal. Some vampire lords still resisted. Some humans remained suspicious. But bridges were being built, one interaction at a time. Long day. Alara turned to find Kale in the doorway. He still wore his formal clothes from council meetings, but he'd loosened his collar, looking more human than king. He visited Dawn House often, sometimes officially, sometimes just to see how things were going. Sometimes, Alara suspected, just to see her. Busy day, she corrected. But good. We treated 43 patients. Only 2 refused treatment when they saw their doctor was the wrong species. That's progress. That's your influence, Kale entered, examining the patient charts on her desk. The Queen says you're performing miracles. Just medicine and compassion. No miracles required. I disagree. You're a miracle every day, he said it simply, like stating a fact. The council approved your proposal, by the way. 3 more healing houses in different districts. Fully funded. Alara's eyes widened. 3 more? Kale, that's necessary. You were right. People need to see change in their neighborhoods, not just hear about it from palace announcements, he smiled. You'll need to hire more staff. Train more healers. My mother's already volunteered to help with administrative oversight. She spoils Liam outrageously. She's a grandmother in everything but official title. It's her right. Kale moved closer, his expression growing serious. Alara, there's something I've wanted to ask you. Something I've been waiting to ask until you were settled, until you felt safe, until… Mom. Liam burst through the door, backpack bouncing. Guess what? I got an A on my vampire history test. Mrs. Blackwood said my essay on the Dawn line was the best she's ever read. Kale stepped back smoothly, the moment interrupted. Alara caught a flash of frustration in his eyes before he masked it. That's wonderful, Liam, she said, hugging her son. I'm so proud of you. And guess what else? There's a spring festival next week. Both human and vampire. Can we go? Please.
We'll see.
Go wash up. Dinner's in an hour. After Liam ran off, Alara turned back to Kale. You were saying? He shook his head, smiling ruefully. It can wait. I should get back to the palace anyway. Council business never ends. Kale. But he was already moving toward the door, pausing only to say, the festival Liam mentioned. I'll be there. Perhaps I'll see you both. Perhaps, Alara said softly. After he left, she stood in the empty clinic, touching the pendant at her throat. Ariane's pendant, which she now wore every day. It pulsed gently, warm with accumulated light. She thought about the Queen's blessing 6 months ago, about the way Kale looked at her when he thought she wasn't watching, about how her heart jumped every time he visited. But she also thought about Liam, about building a stable life, about not rushing into complications when things were finally good. The morning of the spring festival arrived bright and clear. Dawn House was closed for the day, giving Alara and her small staff a rare break. She and Liam walked to the festival grounds in the central square, where humans and vampires had worked together to create something beautiful. Food stalls from both cultures, music blending different styles, children playing games that had been passed down through generations. Liam immediately ran off with his friends, leaving Alara to wander the booths. She bought honey cakes from a human vendor and blood oranges, a vampire delicacy, from another. The symbolism wasn't lost on her. Alara. She turned to find Kale approaching through the crowd. But something was different. He wore simple clothes, no crown, no royal regalia. Just a dark shirt and pants that made him look younger, less burdened. And he was walking through the morning sunlight without a hood. Kale? Alara moved toward him, stunned. The sun. Vampires can't How are you? He smiled, and it was radiant. Dr. Reeves and I have been working on something. Using samples of your blood, with your permission, obviously, she developed a treatment. It doesn't make us immune to sunlight, but it gives us tolerance. A few hours, at least. He spread his arms, letting the light touch his face. I wanted to experience this. The world you and Liam see every day. Liam appeared beside them, eyes huge. Your Majesty, you're not burning. I'm not, Kale agreed. And Liam, we've discussed this. When I'm not being official, you can call me Kale. Okay, Kale. This is so cool. Can all vampires do this now? Not yet. The treatment's still experimental. But someday, maybe. Kale's gaze found Alara's. Your mother's blood is teaching us how to live in the light again. Literally and metaphorically. Around them, the festival continued, humans and vampires celebrating together, children laughing, music playing. It wasn't perfect. Alara could still see some people keeping their distance, still feel the tension in certain corners. But it was progress. It was hope. Walk with me? Kale offered his hand. Alara took it, feeling the warmth of his skin, warmer than before, heated by the sun he'd been denied for 30 years. They walked to the edge of the festival where the crowds thinned, where a small garden overlooked the city. 6 months ago, Kale said quietly, you stumbled into my life by accident. You saved my mother.
You saved me.
You taught us that power means nothing without compassion. I was just doing what felt right, which is exactly why it mattered. He turned to face her fully, still holding her hand. I've been patient. I've tried to give you space, time to build your life without pressure. But Alara, I can't wait anymore. I need you to know that you care about me, she finished softly. I know. I've known for months. And I care about you too. But Kale, I'm still just a waitress from the outer district. You're a king. There's a difference between. No, his voice was firm. You're the keeper of dawn. You're the woman who changed a kingdom. You're the healer who sees past species and status to the person beneath. And I don't want you despite those things. I want you because of them. He lifted his free hand to cup her face, his thumb brushing her cheek. You are the cure I was searching for. Not just for my mother's poison, but for a kingdom dying of hatred. For a king who'd forgotten what it meant to hope. Alara's eyes stung with tears. I have a son. A complicated life. I'm not easy. I'm an immortal vampire king with political enemies and ancient prejudices to overcome. I'm not easy either, he smiled. We'll be difficult together. She laughed, the sound breaking into a sob. This is crazy. The best things usually are. He leaned down slowly, giving her time to pull away. She didn't. Their lips met softly, tentatively, like a question being asked and answered. The pendant at her throat blazed bright enough that people nearby turned to look, gasping at the golden light. When they finally pulled apart, Kale's eyes were bright with unshed tears. Stay with me, he whispered. Not in the palace, I know you need your independence. But stay in my life. Let me be part of yours. Let us build something new together. I'm staying, Alara said. I was always going to stay. Liam's voice called from across the garden. Mom.
Kale.
Come look at this. They walked back together, hand in hand, into the sunlight that Kale could finally touch. Liam grinned at their joined hands but said nothing, just led them to a puppet show that mixed human and vampire folklore. As they watched, Alara leaned against Kale's shoulder. The pendant warmed at her throat. Around them, the festival celebrated a future that was still fragile, still uncertain, but possible. She thought of Ariane, her great-great-grandmother, who'd fled into darkness to protect her daughter, who'd believed the light would return when the world was ready. The world wasn't perfect,
but it was ready to try.
And sometimes, Alara thought, watching Kale smile at something Liam said, watching humans and vampires share food and laughter, watching the sun paint everything gold. Sometimes trying was enough. The man who'd stepped into daylight held her hand. The boy who'd inherited her gift ran ahead, fearless. And the woman who'd accidentally healed a queen walked forward into a future she'd never imagined. Together, they were writing a new story. One where light and shadow learned to dance.
The end.